Welcome back. We're here. It is February, 2 days before Valentine's Day, February 12th.
February 12th.
Yes. This is our second Ask Me Anything. So if you're in the chat joining us, put your questions for us in the chat. We'll highlight them. I have a set of questions here I've already written for Mandy too.
Oh, snap, Amani. You're way more prepared than I am. I've got some in my brains, but I didn't write them down. Yeah.
So yes, so this is the Ask Me Anything. Everything is on limits. Nothing is off limits. We just talk. So what shall we talk about first today, Mandy?
Well, first, I'd like to give a shout out to my husband, Anthony Scooter Graziano, because
Okay.
14 years ago today, on February 12th, we went on our first date and we got into our first fight, and we've been fighting and dating ever since. So
You got to fight the
happy
first date.
14-year anniversary, Scooter Graziano. I love you. Mwah.
All
I don't
right,
think
we
he's
like
watching.
that.
I don't think he's
You don't
watching,
think he's
but
watching? That's okay.
no. But we celebrate when we met, and we also celebrate our wedding anniversary because I want
I like
credit for
it.
those 4 years before we got married. Those were hard.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got the shout out in.
Is there
Mm,
anybody you want to give a shout out to? You feeling a shout out coming
I have no
about?
shout outs for today. No.
No shout abouts?
No shout outs today. No. Um where shall we begin? We have some questions. If you have the questions, remember put them in the chat. Why don't we let you know you can empty your brain a bit? What's the first question you have for us today, Mandy?
Okay. Well, I am curious, and I know you and I just talked about this in a different podcast, but I'm curious because I think this will lube the wheel for everybody else. You now live in Las Vegas. You haven't, this is the first Super Bowl you've been in the same city, right? Have you ever lived in the same city of the Super Bowl before? You lived in a lot of places.
LA, Los Angeles. We were there together.
Oh, that's right.
Los
You were
Angeles.
in LA.
Hmm.
But did you feel the vibe of the Super Bowl? Okay, compare and contrast.
Hmm.
When you lived in LA and the Super Bowl was there versus living in Vegas and the Super Bowl was there. Like what's the experience? How different is the experience?
I think because this was the first one ever in Vegas, it was more anticipation.
Mhm.
And the city was very well prepared and lots to do. The weather was a little cold, but I think in LA there's so many other big events similar. Like we had, I think, in the Final Four there, or whatever. So I think for Vegas it was so new, and for so long it was taboo to come to Vegas to have an event like this. I think that was kind of the allure, so to speak.
Mm. Yeah, but like traffic patterns, like did one city handle it better than the other? Like who wore it better? Who did it better in your opinion from between LA and Vegas?
I would say, well, LA, the traffic is horrible no matter what's going on. So I would
Yeah,
say
yeah, that's true.
that, so I would say Vegas handled it pretty well. They probably wore it a little better, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that was my
Mm,
question. LA,
okay.
LA, Vegas, Super Bowls. I mean, it's just hot. It was just hot in your backyard right
Yeah.
there.
Yes, it was. It was. It was cool. I liked it. Okay, my first question for you. Now, before you have mentioned that you're planning to write a second book.
Mm, yes.
Now, what is your second book going to be about?
My second book is going to be about business bedside manner.
Okay.
And business bedside manner is something that I trademarked. And it's your approach. What is your approach to business? Who do you want to be in the marketplace? How do you want to show up? And are you the person that when people call you call people that they hit decline because you make their stomach hurt because they just don't like you?
Oh
That
no.
happens. I've had some clients like that, or
Mhm.
vice versa. I'm sure I might have been that person. Or are you the person that when you call, people want to pick up because you make the world a better place, you make their business better? So it's all about identifying what your personal business bedside manner is and making sure that every action that you take, you're hanging your hat on that. It's aligned with your business bedside manner. So, like, I've identified four key components of business bedside manner. One is practice empathy, two is assume nothing, three
Mhm.
is ask deeper questions, and then four is use technology to come
Mm,
to a deeper relationship, which people think that's crazy. But when you actually get into the work of developing your business bedside manner, you realize there's so much you can do that's easy with technology that helps you develop a better business bedside manner. So, and then just making sure you're actually doing it. You're actually, you know, doing those things. So for me, I like to rhyme. I'm a rhymer. So whenever I go out of the office, I make sure I have an out of office poem.
mm,
I like to
mm.
write haikus. I like to be funny and quirky. So I try and have quirky interaction with customers. I like to be considered a thought leader. I like to be considered somebody that gives value to the relationship. So in everything I do, I'm always trying to give back. I'm trying to give tips. I'm trying to give knowledge and lift those up around me. Those are the things that are my business bedside manner. So the
Mm.
book just helps you identify what is your business bedside manner, how do you define it, and then what are you doing to do that. So that's what the next book's about.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have one follow-up and then we'll flip the script back.
Okay.
You have one keynote. How many keynotes do you have that you actively kind of either submit or speak on consistently?
Well, business bedside manner is my
Right.
main keynote.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The other
What's your
things that I talk about are mostly like sales coaching, although they
okay.
can easily be a keynote, but business bedside manner is my main keynote.
So that's your sweet spot. That's your main one. The book is coming. Any dates for the book, or what are we thinking? No? Okay.
Probably first or second quarter next year. I'm not sure yet.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Good. I was wondering that. Your turn.
Okay. Well, since we're there, what do you think? And again, I know this, you have to do work on this, but just off the top of your head, what do you think your business bedside manner is? Like, how do you define yourself in business? How do you like to show up in business?
Hmm. So in terms of thought leadership, like uh, a thought leader with regard to the music business and hospitality.
Hmm.
That's number one. What else do I
Okay.
have to answer? What's the next things I have to answer?
Well, just like what are those things that how you identify, how do you define yourself in business? Like how do you what do you want people to think of? When they think of me, they know I'm going to rhyme and I'm going to provide some value, right? Like what do you
Yeah.
want people to say about you?
They
How
think
do
of
you want to
me,
show up?
they'll think of like bow ties, they'll think of music, they'll think of someone who's like a really good interviewer or moderator, knowledgeable about
Mhm.
the music industry and hospitality. And then, always my white Stan Smith shoes too. So
Oh, those are good looking shoes. I love those shoes. That's good stuff,
that's what
honey.
and then a professor too, that's kinda growing also. So those are the things that would kinda make up my business bedside manner.
I love that. Well, I do have another question with that because just hanging here on your professorship for a minute, what classes are you teaching this semester and what do you want the students to get out of it? Because I think, I'm a teacher, you're a teacher. Every batch of students is totally different, right? Semester to semester. So like what are you teaching and what do you hope that this particular batch of students gets out of your classes?
So I teach 3 classes. So I teach one section of the music business. That's the new
Mhm.
class I created. We're in our 2nd cohort this semester. And that's just everything to know about the music business, but it's on the business aspect. It's less about like, um, how to sing on key and kind of that kind of thing. It's more about how to manage an artist, knowledge about publishing, which is kind of the hidden gold mine, A&R touring. So everything about the music business. And then I teach entertainment operations, which introduces students to like the music industry, film and TV industry, and music, film, music, film, TV. And now we're going to dial a little bit in sports and gaming too. We'll add that to our and so just giving them introduction to what those industries are like and kind of showing them maybe they want to kind of delve into a little more. And then we do some fun projects for that. So that's kind of give them just a good background, good foundation for those industries. I teach 2 sections of that. And then I teach a strategic business seminar class, which is like for graduating seniors. We talk about mostly case studies on some popular companies like Airbnb, Uber, Netflix is this week, Airbus, so it's really putting together everything they've learned, and then we kind of do that. But this semester, I'm really trying to open it up and do some other things. Like we do a lot of career activities. For example, they have to create their own website. We're we're adding in more improv into classes, which is so
Oh,
funny.
is that because you're taking improv?
Yes, yes, and so it works.
Oh, that's
For
fun. That's
I'll
super
give you
fun.
I'll give you an example, like, for the last class, we played this game called Thunderdome. So we get in a big circle, and remember there's like 32 students, so it's a big circle, and then we get in the middle, and there's 2 students. We start off, we'll say, "Okay, name cereals." So they'll go back and forth like Frosted Flakes, Wheaties, Rice Krispies, all that. That's fine. And so it really helps them think on their feet quickly. It helps them think on their feet quickly, which is very important
Yeah.
in business and speaking or whatever. So that's good. Now, this week, spoiler alert, we're going to do another game where, say, okay, I'm in the middle of the circle and I'm saying, okay, I'm thinking of a word that rhymes with hill. So if you were playing, you'd be like, does you can't ask me what the word is, but you could say, does your word have something to do with what we do at the end of the month every month? And I'd be like,
Mm.
yes, I'm talking about bills or whatever, paying bills or whatever.
Mhm.
And so we're gonna play that game for like 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And then I'm trying to think, there's another activity. We do a lot of presentations in that class. Like I gave them
Yeah.
10 minutes. So like tomorrow, it'll be Netflix. We're studying Netflix. So I'll say, if you were going to advise Netflix that they need to add this property or they need to acquire this company to expand their subscriber base, what would it be? So if 10 minutes to come up with a
Ooh.
solution, then they have to come back and present out on it. And so that's
Mhm.
just, so those are the 4 classes I'm teaching, and that's kind of what I want them to get out of it.
I love that you're bringing improv into it because it is so important to think on your feet. Okay, follow up. How are your improv classes going? What are you learning? What kinds of games aside from those 2 that you just said? Like what's happening? Because I took improv many years ago and I loved it. I got a lot out of it, but I only did one session. I didn't graduate to the next ones. I didn't make space in my calendar for it. So
Mhm.
I'm jealous you're taking it because I love
Yeah.
it and I'm just curious how's it going?
So it's going very well. It's one of the highlights of my week. It's fun. It's like adult play. Some of my favorite games we played is thank you, Hildy. Hildy says orange is my color. Thank you.
Oh, it is.
It is.
Hildy, drop a question in the chat. We want to know what you want to know.
Yes. So okay, so there's this game we play that I love. We just did it for the first time this session last week. It's like the translation game. So
Mhm.
say there's a third person and they ask you a question. And they say, and that the topic is like maybe, goals for the year. And then they ask you a question, but you can't answer in English. You have to answer in like gibberish. So you answer
Oh.
in gibberish, and then I translate it. And so it's so that I translate what you're saying, and really you can say anything, but you really want to make it like funny, and then you have
Uh-huh.
to follow it through the entire time, but you have to pay attention to your mannerisms, so and your expression, so when you're translating it, it matches. That's one of my
Oh,
favorite games.
that's fun.
Then we played another game. Remember when we were young and like we played the game Foursquare where you bounce the ball and you try to
Yeah.
like knock people out. So this game, there's 4 of us. There's 2 in the front, 2 in the back. So say you and I are in the front. I'm the front left, you're the front right, and our subject is like mythology. So we're gonna have a conversation about Zeus and Athena and all that. Then we rotate. So then you'd come over to the left, I'd go back left. There would be another person come top right, and we have a subject that is cartoons. So you would have to talk to that person about cartoons. So you have to remember what your conversation is as you're rotating around, and it
Oh.
really, really messes. You really have to stay focused. So it really helps you kind of activate the brain, and then you just rotate around. You have these different conversations, and then it's over. That's probably my second favorite game we play.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. This is a lot of like brain work. You're really building your mental muscle, Amani.
Yes,
That's
and it's important
awesome.
for me because yes, Rebecca Osborne, yes, you need to try some improv. And Troy is here too. Good to see you, Troy.
Hi, Troy. Hi, Rebecca. Drop us some questions in the chat. What do you want to
Yeah,
know?
yes. Oh, Hilly dropped a question. I'll ask it next. I just want to
Okay.
say that activating the brain is important because Alzheimer's runs in my mother's side of the family. So I
Oh, I
want to do
didn't realize that.
whatever I can to keep the brain active, whether it be reading, puzzles. This is perfect. This is perfect for it. So that's also a reason why I want to kind of engage and activate it.
I love that. Well, my favorite improv game that's a fun party game too is Bunny Bunny. So really quick, there you stand in a circle and you put your hands to your face and you go bunny bunny and then you put your hands out bunny bunny And when you get hit by the bunny bunny, the person on the other end then has to receive it, bunny bunny, and throw it, bunny bunny,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like a whole pay attention to what's
Yeah.
happening. But then at the same time, everybody in the circle has clapping on their legs and they're going oomba, oomba, oomba. And
Yeah.
then it goes bunny, 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 bunny. And then the people, if you get bunny bunny, then the person to the left and the right of the person getting bunny bunny, it has to go tiki taki. So it's all these noises. It's
Yes.
very distracting.
Yes.
It is so fun. It always provokes laughter. And I've played it in pools before at company events. I've played it at family functions. It's one of my favorite takeaways from improv is bunny bunny. So I hope you get to play that eventually in your classes.
Okay. Question. Hildy says, what has Amani learned about Mandy during your adventures in business live streams that will shock Mandy?
Oh, Amani, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Wasn't it that when you were in high school, were you like the bully in high school, or you were very bad? You were
I
very
was a bad
bad.
kid.
You were a bad kid, and you were like get suspended, or you were that shocked, that really surprised me about you. That's how I answer that question. Yeah.
Mm.
So that would be the answer right away that I think of.
I was a
So
troublemaker. I
yeah.
got kicked out of classes and I didn't get my school together until I went to college because I had to pay for it. My parents were like, "We are not paying for you to go anywhere. You are a mess." And then I paid for it, and that's when I got my act together and I understood the value of a good hard-earned dollar and I soared from there. But yeah,
Good.
I was in Mr. Kroviak's office quite a bit in high school.
Shane. So
Mhm.
Chris is here with us. Good to see you, Chris. Says dedicated time for coloring really help you get to sleep faster. That's interesting. We will talk about sleep too. So thank you for sharing. And
Thanks for sharing, Chris.
Troy said, I did an improv speech course here locally at the Guthrie Theater. Oh, tell us how that is. Okay, let's see here. Am I up for my next question? Keep putting questions in the chat, or do you have a question? How do we
I
want
have
to
a
do?
question since Chris, and I appreciate Chris talking about sleep. Amani, sleep is, you've said several times now, sleep is something you're working on this year.
Mhm.
So, how's it going? And what tactics are you putting in? Let's just talk about sleep for a little bit because I've
Yes.
got some sleep tactics and so do you. And then I want to hear from the audience. What are
Right.
your sleep tactics? Because performance in life is really important, but it starts with a good night's rest. So, Amani, what's going on in your sleep world?
So I think the biggest thing is two things. I got a weighted blanket. So I use
Good.
a weighted blanket. So
So,
that seems to
Whoopi, your
help.
little Whoopi.
Yeah, so that seems to help with
It's cute.
prevent you from tossing and turning. So that's
Mhm.
good. And then so I'm tracking my sleep better on the apps also, so I can see how much I get deep sleep, which is not very much, surprisingly. And then I have this new alarm clock that when it goes off, say if I set it for 5 o'clock in the morning, at like 4:30, it'll start to light up. It'll start to light up
Oh.
slowly but surely. And then at like the time when the alarm goes off, it'll start playing birds and other noises or whatever. So it's like a gradual wake up. So that's new. I just
Oh,
got
what is
that
that alarm
one.
clock? I love the sounds of
I'll
that.
send it,
Sounds
like
like a
it's
very
like a
precious one.
I'll look it up. It's like a Philips alarm clock. And I did
Okay.
research and it's like $100, $120. And so far it helps you because usually, the alarm goes off on our phone, it kind of jolts us awake or whatever. But this one is
Mhm.
gradual and it's pretty nice. So those are two things. It's helping. I still need to work on deep sleep though. That's a challenge, getting more
Mhm.
deep sleep. So slowly but surely progress is being made.
I appreciate that. I think if we want to perform at our best or just want to live a better life, I think sleep's important. But sleep, not everybody can get sleep. I mean, there's your kids are waking up in the middle of the night. Maybe your kid is sick and you had just a bad night's rest, or maybe you have bad linen, or maybe you're physically uncomfortable because you have some sort of injury or you've got a lot on your mind. I think there's just it's so easy to find ways to just get to things that block your sleep. So I think identifying what those are and trying to clear those if you can are
Yeah.
really important. I know for me, sleeping's super important. So I try and go to bed and wake up around the same time every day, every night, whenever. It's not always possible, especially with time zones and travel schedules and
Right.
stuff, but I try. And then I try not to eat past 7 o'clock because I feel like if my belly is unsettled, I don't get a good night's rest, whether
Yeah.
that is just like heartburn or just being full or whatever. So I try and not eat past 7 o'clock so my body can actually clean itself while it's sleeping instead of digest. And so
Yeah,
it's not as troubled as I fall asleep. So those are my kind of sleeping
that's
sleeping
good.
patterns.
Well,
Yeah.
Kilby did ask us a question, and we're going to take it back to using your experience being a troublemaker to give advice to parents who could be listening or watching. What is your advice to parents that have troublemaker kids?
Ooh. Well, I am not a parent, so I don't feel qualified to answer this from a parent's perspective, but I can say as a recovering troublemaker
Yes, there we go.
that most of the times if we're making trouble, we are bored. And I will say that for myself. I was very bored in high school. I would do all of my assignments like right away, and then I would just be the class clown. So it wasn't that I was a bad kid. It was just that I was bored and then I was feeling time. And I feel that now as an adult. Like if I'm at a party or if I'm at like a networking event, if I am bored, I will cause trouble, like because I'm bored. So I
Mhm.
think if you find something to fill your kids' time with, or sometimes troublemaker kids are just really creative. I was a very, very creative kid and I didn't have any creative outlets. And it took me a long time to understand my creative outlets. So just maybe let them be, let them express themselves, ask them, like,
Mhm.
why did you get kicked out of class? Like, instead of being so mad at them, like, why did you get kicked out of class? Like, what happened? What were you doing in Mr. Kroviak's office? What did you guys talk about? Because really, Mr. Kroviak was the only adult at the school that actually talked to me like a human. Like, the rest of the teachers, I was a barrier to their teaching success. I get that. I was a pain in the
Yeah.
butt. But Mr. Kroviak talked to me like a person. And I liked hanging out with him. Like he was interesting. Like we talked about like books and stuff, and he was interesting. And so I think like just talking to them like people, and instead of just grumbling at them why, just asking them like just curiously like what happened when you got kicked
Yeah.
out, like it just allowing them to be creative and trying to solve some of their boredom, I
Got
think.
it. Got it. Hello, Dean
Yeah.
is in the chat here. So good to see you, Dean.
Hi
Thank you for coming
Dee, thanks for
through.
being here.
Whose turn is it? I think it's your turn, right? Is it your
It's
turn?
my turn. Yeah,
Okay.
well, yeah, no, it's your turn because I
Okay.
just asked you about sleep, your
Yes,
sleep.
you'd asked me
Yeah.
about sleep. Um, Now that we're coming up on a year and a half, heading towards 2 years for the podcast, congrats to us. How has
Mhm.
this podcast benefited you personally and professionally?
Ooh. Well, I think personally, I made a new friend. I made a new friend with Amani. I look forward to seeing you and chatting with you at least once a week now.
Yes.
Um, and I think personally, it's helped me be a lot more relaxed on camera.
Mm,
I think Clubhouse has really helped me be a lot more relaxed, just audio standpoint. And I think being in a live streaming situation has made me be a lot more relaxed. I would say, prior to this, I always would do virtual coaching or I would do I do webinars for my customers every quarter. And I was
mhm,
always really nervous going into it. Like what would happen if the internet went out? What would happen if this? But the reality is anything live, the
mhm.
internet's gonna go out.
Yes.
And you just find a way to figure it out. And so I think it's just personally, it's just helped me be a lot more relaxed on screen. And I made a new friend.
Yeah.
And then professionally, I mean, I think anytime you can do something live like this, it adds to your thought leadership, it adds to your value, it adds to your credibility, and it helps people trust you a little bit more. And I think people buy from people they trust. They don't buy from people they like. I hate that folk tale of people buy from people they like. It's like, no,
Oh, yeah.
they buy from people they trust. And I think it's helped me speed up my sales process a lot more.
Okay.
And I've learned a lot professionally. Like, I mean, I'm all over this podcast we do. I've learned so much about getting guests. I've
Yeah.
learned about marketing. I've learned about hiring out, like I have 5 people on my team today versus when we first started, I had one.
Mm,
I've learned about I mean, I've learned about
mm,
delegating and growing a business. And yeah,
yeah.
I've learned a lot. What about you? What benefits have you had personally and professionally from this over the last year and a half?
I would say, like, personally, um, similar to you, like getting to know you better, really learning from you.
Oh my, that's nice.
Personally, like that's really, really good. Just how you approach things. And you when you talk about, well, we could do this as a business or we could do it as a hobby. That is something I always think about too, which is really cool. So that kind of comes to mind. And then uh professionally, just continuing to, make content, be a thought leader. Some of the people that, you've introduced us to the first time has been really good for like networking, and then vice versa. And yeah, it's just, and then just being consistent, because it's hard. Like, it's
Mhm.
hard when you're doing a podcast or a show and maybe you don't have like a lot of like viewers or listeners at first, but if you're consistent, you'll start to see growth over time. So that's just really practicing, the resilience muscle and being consistent. And then, even doing this whole process through our vacations, through a move, through business,
Mhm.
but we're still consistent, which says a lot. So that's something that's really been a good learning also. That's what I would say.
I agree with you. I wanna hang here on this hobby versus business thing,
Mm. Mhm.
because I think this is important, not just for the podcast, but I think a lot of people go through this of like, "Oh, like, for example, I think I see this a lot, like people that get married and then they're like, "Oh, I was really good at planning my wedding, so I'm gonna quit my scientist job and I'm gonna be a wedding planner." And they don't realize like planning your wedding for yourself versus planning the wedding for a stranger. That's a totally different animals. But I see that a lot and I'm like, "Oh, good luck with that." But I think like not everything that you do that you love to do needs to be monetized. Like
Mhm.
it's totally okay to have a hobby that you're really good at. And it's also okay to have a hobby that turns into a business. But I think it's good for people to create that separation for themselves and accept that hobby. Just
Yeah.
accept it as it is, you know? But then I also think for us of like we love to do this and if we want to keep this a hobby, then we put a certain amount of effort and time into it. But if you want to do it as a business, then you put a different amount of effort and time and investment into it. And I think that's also good for people to think about. Like, if you want to do a podcast, like, do it. Like, it's so easy to do, but just know you don't have to monetize it. It
Mhm.
could just be your creative outlet once a week that just makes you happy. That's totally okay. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay. But I think it's important to go into it with, is this a business or is this a hobby kind
Yeah.
of thing?
Great question.
Yeah.
So that reminds me, and Hildy, I see your next question. We're going to get to that. Keep putting questions in the chat if you're here with us. Um, you had your debut for your live session with your people. How did that go? What did you learn from that?
Oh my gosh, Amani. It was Sales Tales Live. I had my very first Sales Tales Live last week where I sold tickets, I sold it out, and we talked about how to be a better salesperson. And it was awesome. It was better than I could have expected. And the thing is I had never done anything like that before. Like
Mhm.
I coach all the time live and over the screen, but I had never actually sold tickets to it and had all different salespeople from different organizations and different industries join.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot. Like we did a drip campaign, which I had never done before. We used
Oh, yeah.
forms.
Yes.
Yeah, we use forms inside Wix, which
Mhm.
Wix is the for those of you who aren't in this world, like Wix is a platform that hosts my website, right? But they have all these other things you can do with it. So we learned to use forms. We learned how to do a drip campaign. I sent a survey out because I really wanted to curate the actual session. I knew the content, but I wanted to
Right.
curate it specifically. And people replied on the survey. That was awesome for me to know in advance. Here are the top 3 things people really want to learn about. So then I could tweak it a little bit so I could really give people value. So I learned a lot. Like I did stuff I had never done before, but the session itself was great. And what
Nice.
always happens in those group sessions, I'm sure this happens in your classes too. It always happens in mine, is you think you're coming to this for one part of content, but when everybody starts sharing their story and then they start solving each other's problems, crowdsourcing those problems, that's where the magic is. But you
Hmm.
can't explain that to people at the beginning. Like
Yeah.
they don't, they don't know what's going to happen. And then when you're in the middle of it, you're like, oh, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool. It was awesome. The thing I learned so many things, but the top thing I learned is I always turn my automated I have like an AI recording thing that I have with every Zoom I do. And when I speak, I always turn it off because it kind of gets in the way of the frequency of the bandwidth.
Right.
So I turned it off and then I put all these notes around everywhere. Don't forget to record. And I forgot to record.
You got to
I
record.
forgot to record, which was a rookie mistake. It was awful, but I know you've done it before. I've done it before. Like I just forgot to record. So that was a big thing of like just don't turn the AI thing off and just hope the
Right.
bandwidth is okay. Um and then the second thing is, I included a whole bunch of value with that ticket price that ultimately wasn't as valuable to people. Like it was just enough for them to come. The
Mm,
value of the content was plenty.
yeah.
I included a signed book, I included discounts on coaching, I included access, I included a lot of other things. And so far, it's just all about the coaching. And then I heard back from people like, Mandy, I would have the price of admission was fine. I would have just paid to attend.
Yeah.
So I think like just kind of tweaking what's included and what isn't, and then just really making sure I'm giving service and value. Moving on
Yes.
was good. So it was
Remind
awesome.
remind me, we should talk about that in our next mini, just more. We'll go into detail for that in the next mini because I have specific questions. That was
Oh,
good.
okay.
I remember one thing I wanted to share with you, but then we have Hildy's question. So Hildy's question is there advice you were given for me? And we'll ask you the same question. Is there advice you were given growing up that you share and use today?
Ooh.
Huh.
What did
So,
Professor Roberts tell
huh,
you to do, Amani?
yeah, I think, well, because my dad was a professor, so that's
I
actually
know.
what I'm thinking. And
I
he
know.
he played a lot of high level soccer as a kid, and we lost a lot of close games that were at the highest of levels, state team, regional team. And he said, always admire how even when you go through the toughest of losses, you'll still come back and never want to give up or whatever. So I would
Mm.
translate that to be advice that was given to me as young that I use today, I share with my students, and I use today. Then to continue with regard to the students, we did this activity that you would love, Manny, last week, which kind of fits into the question, Hildy, is we have to go over different things of business. One of them is called a SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So we go through this exercise and we analyze, I think we analyze like Uber, we analyze like Spotify and another company. But then I say, okay, it's your turn to do a personal SWOT. So I say, for example, I go through my personal SWOT. So here are my strengths, my experience in music. Here
Mm.
are my weaknesses, people pleaser, other things like that. Here are my opportunities, get a full-time teaching position, threats, all this stuff. And then they turn them in as part of the assignment. And some of the answers were so cool. Like they were so honest and open. So that's for that strategic business seminar class, but that's a really cool activity that I think you would be good at too. So
I love a SWOT analysis. You know what though? I've done it in so many business situations. I've never done it on myself like
personal,
that.
yeah. Personal
That's
SWOT.
really
Yeah.
good. That should be another mini that we do too. We'll do our
Okay.
own we'll
Wait,
do our own separate SWOTs and then we'll share it
SWOT. Okay.
live. But
Yes.
just our personal, not our business, because
Right,
businesses
right.
can be boring, but
Yep.
personal stuff gets
Yeah.
juicy, gets real juicy.
Yes, for that one. Okay. So thank you. Keep asking questions in the chat. What are you most excited about in 2024?
Ooh. I have some really great travel planned. I've
Mhm.
got yeah, I mean, my husband and I are going to Cartagena in
Ooh,
May because I'm in the top 10 for HPN Global Top Producers President Club. And HPN has just leveled up their incentive trip game. They are taking us to Cartagena, and I'm very excited about that. I've never been to Colombia before, and on the back end, Scooter and I are going to have a little lovers trip. We're going to go to Miami by ourselves. We love Miami, so we're going to just going to couple days in Miami, and I'm going to Berlin with IHG Hotel Group. They're doing a customer event in Berlin, Germany. And I've never been anywhere in Germany. So I'm very excited about that. And I've just got some great travel. My Aunt Dina and I, she was the officiant at our wedding, and she and
mhm.
I, she's more like a big sister. we used to travel the world together before I met Scoot 14 years ago. And then I had like a permanent travel partner, my boyfriend, now my husband. So she and I don't travel anywhere alone anymore. So we just decided she and I are going to do a biking trip because we're both bike riders. So we're going to do a bike trip in Oregon together in the summer. And I'm excited to get that one-on-one time. So I've got some really cool personal and professional travel coming up that I'm super stoked about.
Love it. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
What are you
okay.
excited about for 2024?
Ooh, 2024, finishing and releasing my book, the second book.
Here it
I got back
comes.
I got back to edits, the first round of edits last week, so I gotta work on those and gotta stay committed to that because that'll take a little time.
Mhm.
Um, so that's one thing. And then I'm working with the brand builders group. And so just the work we're doing, like I think I shared with you how we came up with my one word problem that I solved and the cause
Yeah.
of all that, that stuff is pretty cool. So getting through that so I can really hone my message, that
Yeah.
that's very, very exciting too. So I would say
What
that.
exercise are you working on right now with your brand builders group? Like, what's the most recent?
So right now we're just about to finish up their expert bio, where you have a one-line bio, you have like a 2 or 3 line bio, then you have your full bio. And we're
Mm.
working through that exercise now so I can tweak my bio. And then I'll get on to like creating captivating content is kind of the next module in the system. So I'm going along at a pretty fast pace because I'm really committed. So that's kind of where I'm working on now. And it's exciting. You just have to stick with it.
That's how many people are in the group at the same time?
People are at different stages of the group because
Mhm.
it's like a long process. So like I would say I don't know, in my stage, maybe 90, 100 people, I think. And people kind of go at different speeds and join and drop off. So I think that's kind of the amount of people because they have different calls throughout the weeks and you see different people at different stages and you just kind of listen and learn. So yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, so is it a live community thing where you can join in where you want? Are there any mandatory that like you have to be at once a week, once a month, or anything like that?
For me, the level that I'm at, there's like a mandatory once a month call with the strategist, which I just had
Mhm.
last week. And then there's different communities for like professional speakers, authors, which I'm a part of, which they have monthly calls. And
Mhm.
then in the interim, there's different modules you have to complete that are like video modules that'll walk you through the process. Then you have homework to do. So you're doing like homework and things to finish. So that's kind of how it works there.
Awesome. That's exciting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like those community coaching type programs. Like I belong to Jesse Itzler's roundtable
Mm.
group.
Mhm.
And the beginning of the year, everybody's in it. And then, it sort of peters off around like May, June, July. I stay in it, but it's
Good.
once a month and it's none of it's mandatory. But everybody does participate in a live call with him once a month. But then throughout the year, there are other little specialty things you can participate in. Like if you want to be a better public speaker, or if you want to be a better parent, or if you want to create your own podcast, there's all these other little spin-off things that you can participate in. And then there's recordings you can listen to as well. So I try and just listen to the recordings as I'm walking the dog.
Yes.
But I love those crowdsourced live type coaching programs because I think it's really awesome hearing other people's
Yes.
situations. It's very
And
good to
then
hear
meeting other people, networking, like it has great value. And then when you see people have success that you work with along the way, that's very good inspiration.
that. Mhm.
It's just good to see people doing things and taking action because on the flip side, when you see people who aren't taking action but complaining, that can be very annoying and just demotivating.
Mhm.
So to be around people that are consistently trying things, taking action, trying, failing, keep going, very inspiring.
It's like my favorite saying, surround yourself with people who want to move their lives forward in a productive and joyous way.
Got it right
We
there.
got
Yep.
it up. We've got it up in our offices. Yeah.
Okay. Your turn.
Okay. This might cut to the bone, but I gotta know. Sorry, money. Valentine's Day is Wednesday.
Yes.
What do you do on Valentine's? I know what I used to do on Valentine's Day when I was single. What do you do on Valentine's Day?
Well,
Or do you have
uh,
a date? Or you have a date on
not this year. I don't have a date.
Okay,
Well, no,
okay.
because improv class is on Valentine's Day.
Oh,
I'm
that's
gonna,
fun.
I'm gonna go to improv class on Valentine. I might because you're supposed to bring things. So I might bring. Remember how we were kids and you get a Valentine from everyone in the class or whatever.
Yes.
I might bring little envelopes and do that for my class, like 10 people. Um, I used to have uh, a ritual where what would I make? I think I make like lasagna, and I watch The Cutting Edge, the
Oh my
movie.
god. I love that. That's such a good ritual. That's
That
so
would be
ritual.
my ritual. So this year, I don't have that ritual because I'm going to go to class, but that's what I would do normally.
I love that ritual. I think it's also okay on Valentine's Day to just have a celebration of self. I think
Yeah.
because when I was single for Valentine's Day, I used to do this thing called Club 214. And it was anybody that was single, like newly divorced, single, whatever. Or maybe you're in a marriage, but you feel single. Whatever your situation is. I don't care. I don't judge. Whatever your
Right.
situation is.
Right.
Um, that come to we would all like name a place and it would be like we'd get together for happy hour or whatever. We called it Club 214. And then everybody was in bed early or whatever because we all had to work the next day normally. But I like the surrounding self with each other during holidays like that where you're supposed to be like Mother's Day, Father's Day. If you're not a mom, you're not a dad. If you don't have parents, I
Yeah.
like community building over those holidays because it doesn't have to be sad. It just
No.
can still be a reason to celebrate something.
Yes. Yes. What's up, Heather Cox is here. Hello, Heather. Um, okay. My next question to you would be we briefly touched on it, but you're a teacher, professor at San Diego State. What is the most challenging thing about being a teacher there?
Hmm. I don't know if it's about being there because I think this is everybody has this, but it's just like my next class starts in the first week of March. And I every semester I find myself doing this at the last minute. I already know the content, the course is already written, but it's just you have to upload everything back to Canvas. And it's so silly because it's so easy to do, but it's just taking the time to actually, I'm uploading. I already have guest speakers, as you know, because you're going to be a guest speaker.
Mhm.
I've
Thank
got
you.
guest speakers lined up. I already have everything written, but it's just like I got to change the dates. I got to upload. It's just administrative stuff that's
Yeah.
silly but other than that, I mean, SDSU Global Campus makes it really easy to be a professor there and they do a great job at getting the students there and communicating with the students. It's just the administrative stuff on my end. It's just me just not making time to do it. And I always am doing it at the last minute. Like I'm always getting a nasty gram of Mandy, time's a ticking. You got to get it loaded. I'm like, I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So that's it. What about you?
Grading papers, number one.
Mhm.
That's the hardest thing right there.
Yeah.
And then, now this is the first semester in I think three that I don't have a new class to prep for.
Mm.
So that's really hard too, because then you can kind of just copy and paste and borrow from what you've done. Because you kind of follow the same same chronological order. So that would be number two. Um, that's it really, and just now I'm really focused because I read a lot of the feedback from past semesters,
Yeah.
and I have like a hybrid class, which I got scored on a little bit lower because you go in person one day and then you're virtual the second day. So I'm really trying to figure out what can I do to make it so that the virtual day is valuable as much as the in-person day. So that's what I'm
Mm.
working on now. So I'm probably gonna create a game or a quest or something for the students to go through each week, but I'm working on that now.
It's interesting because mine are all virtual and they're 3 hours each. So it's only four classes, 3 hours each. And so what my concern is this time around is I have a lot of speaking engagements peppered in with my class. So it's for me, it's a voice management thing. So I'm very careful about like what I drink, eat, how much sleep I get, and
Yeah.
how I vocal rest myself, like heading into a speech. And so I just the whole month of March, I just have to be really on my game because I've got speech and then class and then speech and then class
Yeah.
and then two classes and then two other speeches. So it's a vocal rest issue for
Yeah.
me. And it's interesting because I never have a problem with the virtual classes. I always prefer to be live, but just this particular program is all virtual and it started going virtual at COVID. But I never have a problem with interact. In fact, the 3 hours goes by fast. It's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Um, but I could see how it would be hard if you're used to being face to face and then virtual, how you got to vary it up. Like
Yeah.
that's plus
Hmm.
it's entertainment, right? So you
Yeah.
want to kind of like show what you could do, right? From an
Right.
entertainment standpoint sometimes in those classes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
Hildy says here she needs something funny and new to watch on TV tonight. What do you suggest? Well, if
Oh,
you have Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime, Abbott Elementary, that's top recommendation. Very funny.
I haven't
That's
seen it
good.
yet.
I've been catching up on all 5 seasons of The Recruit, which is ABC and Hulu, which can be very funny and is very good. Those are my two recommendations. What about you?
Okay, Hildy, I know you know the show. I've been watching LA Law at night. I haven't It's not a show I watched when I was a kid. I heard my mom watching it, but I never or somebody watched it because I remember hearing the music growing up,
Mhm.
but I never really watched it.
Yeah.
And I have been watching and what a funny it is so funny, but it's also like, it ages pretty well. Like, the stuff
Nice.
that they talked about, I'm like, "This is pretty cutting edge for the '80s."
Hmm.
So my recommendation is if you don't do LA Law, go back into the time zones, go back into the time warp and
Yeah.
see what you could watch or rewatch from the past because some of that stuff is up and it's good right now.
So Hildy also says, carry, I guess, do you carry around Vocal Zone? When she says her friend who gets paid 25K to speak swears by it. So she left the link for that in the chat.
I don't know what Vocal
Um,
Zone is. I have to check that out.
yeah. So I'm thinking, as part of the brand builders exercises, we got about 5 minutes left. So I'll ask you one question. They say, when we sell our time, because we have services to sell, instead of selling your services for like cheaper and getting a lot of people, you could get a few high priced clients that would be even better than that. And so when it comes to coaching, I'm curious your opinion because I'm kind of working through this exercise now. What kind of coach do you think I would be best at?
Ooh. I mean, you mean whether it's a group or whether it's individuals or just the
Like,
topic?
like if I was going to get some clients that would be like pay me a good amount of money to coach them on specific topics or philosophy, what do you think would be best for me?
I think it would be 10 people or less because I think you're great in all sizes groups, but I think you really excel in a small group
Right.
situation.
Mhm.
Plus, it gives people, you're such a wealth of knowledge. You have such a varied background that I think it gives people more time to ask you more questions. But I think the live streaming thing and the podcast thing is something you're very good at. And I think it's something that a lot of people want to do, but they don't know how to do it. I think it's very intimidating to people.
Yes.
And I think that you are really good at disarming complicated subjects, and you're very good at making people feel comfortable doing complicated things. So I think I almost feel like it's a podcast, how to create your own podcast, how to build a business through live streaming. I think
Mhm.
something in that area, and it's 10 people or less. And I think people would find value in that. I think people would pay good money for that because you have it. I mean, how many followers do you have on Twitch?
Ooh, over 7,000, like
Yeah.
7,200 maybe. Yeah.
And you have what, like 20,000 on Instagram or 17,000 on Instagram?
Maybe 12,000, 12,000.
12,000. Yeah, like you have the street cred to say,
Right.
I live stream once a week and then you can do it's music versus content versus business conversations. I think that that would be very valuable. And as we know, with SmartList being bought by Amazon for $101 million
Yes.
and oh no, is it by Amazon? No, by Sirius. They
Yeah.
bought it from Amazon by Sirius, we know that, podcast space, even though people say it's saturated, it's not. Like
Right.
people are just getting started. And I think it's something people want to learn more about. So I think that's something people would invest in. What do
Good
you
to
what are
know.
you thinking about for yourself? Like what are you wanting to talk about?
It was something kind of like that, like or also you look at just people want to grow their DJ business and kind of take it up a notch too. So that was one option, but the live streaming kind of podcast, that's another option I'd consider too. Those are two I thought about, but also like hospitality professionals who like want to write a book, because if you look at it, and I'm speaking about this at WEC, we don't have very many authors in our space in the hospitality meetings and events industry, and we need more, but
We
people are very
don't.
intimidated to write a book. So to coach them on that process and just getting it all done could be very valuable too. That's kind of the wild card.
I mean, I think you've got 3 great ideas. But I think you should pick one. I don't think you should do all 3. Just pick
Right.
one and start with one and learn your chops there, right? Get a model down. I love me a system. Get a model down, get a system down, audit that system and that model, and then you could release these other topics once you get
Agreed.
that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Heather wants to know, what microphones do we each use? And then we'll go to you for our final question.
Okay.
So mine is like a Ars Technica. I have to look at the specific model. But Audio Technica is mine right there. And then what kind do you use, Mandy?
I don't know. I have a Shure microphone stand. This might be a Shure microphone.
Yeah, it's probably Sure. I bet you if you took off the
Take off
little,
the
yeah, you'll see what
Okay.
kind of, I think it's a Sure.
Okay.
That's the one we talked about. Yeah, that looks like a
People
Sure
that
mic.
are listening, it's is a Shure. It's a Shure, so SHURE SM48.
Yeah.
Sure, SM48 coming to you live from San Diego.
Yes. Good. Perfect. So that's what we use. Thank you for asking. I'll let you kind of close it off with final question or final thoughts, or ask me anything. It's gone by really fast. Heather says she also uses Shure. What's on the mind? We have to do these once a quarter because we can see how we get so many questions. So we'll do another one second quarter.
Yeah,
But
we
for
just gotta
now,
slot it in the calendar. The reason why we did it this time is because we had a guest cancel. Let's be honest. Let's
yes.
be honest.
But
But we should be more intentional. But I'm with you. I agree with you, Monty.
yes. Any
Yeah.
final questions or thoughts?
Yeah, I love the questions and the answers and the dialogue. And listen, audience, we don't have to wait for an Ask Us Anything to ask questions of each other. I mean, the people that were in the room today, Troy and Hildy and Heather and Dean and everybody else that's listening, on the rewatch as they're walking their dogs or driving their kids to drop off. We don't have to wait once a week. We can ask each other questions as frequently as possible and be committed to lifting each other up. I think Amani and I both are here. We're available. We want you to succeed. We want you to be better. We want to know what you're working on.
Mhm.
We want to be a part of that. So don't wait till once a week to drop a question in the chat. Don't wait till, we do an Ask Us Anything. Reach out to us anytime. DM us on all the social platforms, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram, or, find our emails and let's just keep the conversations going. Because if that's one thing I've learned from this show is the people that we've interviewed, they want to keep the conversations going.
Yes.
We want to keep the conversations going. And the only way we get better at this stuff is if we literally keep conversations going. So that would be my takeaway homework assignment, and
All right.
just advice for everyone. What about
Love
you? What's your final?
Like I like doing the Ask Me Anything, so we'll make sure to slot it in second quarter, send us questions. I think next time, by then we'll be close to halfway through the year, which is scary to think about. But we'll talk about books next time because I'm always looking to learn and see what other books we should be reading. So we'll add that to our list. And just thanks for tuning in and engaging with us live. It's really appreciated. Make sure to rate and review the show on the platform you're listening or watching on, and share it with a friend. And with that, we will close out the show and we'll see you next week. I think we have Courtney Stanley next week, right?
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
You're a
yeah.
real rock star next week.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So Courtney will be with us. We'll have a great conversation. She's a professional speaker, speaks all over the world, does great work. Close friend of mine. So I'm excited to sit down and chat with her. And 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. on the West. We will see you all then. Thanks for participating. Stay safe. Enjoy Valentine's Day, and see you soon. Bye,
See
everyone.
you soon. Bye.
Okay, so stop.